We were talking ostensibly to some of the people watching since the last count I heard. We still have several dozen markets getting this, and I know that people watch it and wonder, why am I watching this? I think those who are polite, they would more likely put it, I'm watching this, but exactly what is it? Thank you and good night. But at any rate, we were trying to cover some of it, and we were last talking, if you recall, about the difficulty if something does not have a name. And it is not simply this. It's not simply a game, and it's not trying to play with your mind, because if you see it, it is simply a reflection, simply, that once you understand that the human nervous system, at the brainy end, not at your ass end, even with you dwarfs, it's moving, and it's always incomplete, always searching, like a loose end of a wiring system, a hot line down, cut, waving in the wind. All right, on that same basis, what this reflects is this does not know what it's reaching for. And so it reaches out and it gets everything from drugs and alcohol to religion, philosophy, weirdness, sex, overeating. And so in a sense, everybody's own nervous system is already playing. They don't have to want to. It's not a choice, but they're already playing with an unnameable prospect. In the past, and even now, but in the past, you could look at the attempt to put some sort of name on it has been falling generally, as looked back historically, within the bailiwick of philosophy and religion. Philosophy, that is, that which appeared to be dealing more directly with mind, normally fell back on the position of it becoming a matter of questioning rather than providing answers, so that the classically, academically conceived philosophers would not say, well, we're now trying to explore absolutely unknown territory. They'll say that, but they don't leave it there. Then they say, what do you think of that? You all know. And then Plato would look at Socrates and go, you talking to me? And then they'd lay down on those funny little couches and they would discuss philosophy. But it was on the basis not that this unfinished piece of business that was the human mind would try and come to some conclusion. That is, it would be saying, wait a minute, I have these strange urges. I keep wanting to do something. I keep wanting to scratch, and I'm not sure where it itches. And so rather than leave it there, which is what I'm inferring as part of the difficulty in dealing with this sort of thing, rather than leave it there, philosophy used the basis of, isn't that interesting, and would try and find at least one other person, and then you've got philosophy going, because you cannot philosophy by yourself. So you got to have one more person, and the other person says, well, I thought similar things. And you go, great, we'll philosophy. And they do. What else they do is none of my business. They at least philosophy. But at any rate, that is not the main portfolio of most people's life. It is mainly fallen into the hands, not of all state, what do you call it? Religion. Sears is not in the religion business yet, are they? No. It's not mainly been religion. That religion, and this has nothing to do with denominations and has nothing to do with religion specifically, but it's fallen into the institution of religion to take up the matter of, what are we looking for? Why is it that I feel this uncertainty? I have this itch and I can't find it. But, now listen, here's a very, I suggest, interesting part, that you can learn something, not about religion, but you can learn something. You can see something in you, is religion has been faced with the same exact problem. One more time, we're not talking about religion, which this is, I know, makes it even worse. It started out me threatening, yes, we're going to address the great viewing audience and people who find this interesting for whatever reason that they don't even know, and how vague it seems, so we'll unvague it. And here it is, a few minutes into it, and we're about to even increase the vagueness. So we're not talking about religion. We're not talking about anybody. We're not talking about any denomination. We're not even talking about religion, but that's all you can call it, because that's what it calls itself. Is religion steps in at the very place on a great institutional level. That is collective thinking. It steps in to where individuals go, what is this? What is it I'm wanting? What am I looking for? And religion steps in. But for religion to even get going, for it to begin to fulfill any function, it has got to take up this place, take up the slack that I'm pointing out, that it has no name. So what does religion do? What has been the answer? Faith. May I ask for your own, if you're not just wasting your time, which is all right, try one more time, anew, not to get involved with the words, because it's not really about religion. And it's certainly not an attack. But now consider faith in the widest sense of the word. Not Christian faith, not Muslim faith, not Jewish faith, but the idea of faith. It takes up for the fact that what religion is attempting to cover has no name. So it can't give it a name. And it can't tell you what's going on because it doesn't know. It's in the same boat with you. It's just got a bigger house. And so what does it do? That is life through religion. With its hand up religion's dress like all the rest of us, making the mouth move, it says faith. And many quite reasonable, ordinary people, your friends, your family, are religious. Now I'm sure that you've got family and friends that say, well, I have faith. But now consider. Extract all possible hostility. Because if you can't, you're not thinking anyway. Faith is absolutely unbased. Which is not the point, because at the ordinary level, non-religious people can attack religion on the basis of, boy, what a bunch of idiots having faith. And it's just it's a synonym for ignorance. No. Now they're a synonym for ignorance. Anybody that's still a critic. But consider, if you're not being hostile and you're not critical at all, the idea of faith is the attempt to put a name on that which has no name. Not to cover up ignorance, because they're not covering up ignorance. They don't know any more than you do. That is religion. The institution doesn't know any more. With the reason institutions, another reason that they seem to offer some potential solace is that there's more of them. So you assume that if you're staying there and you feel weak and of no consequence, you feel somewhat in the dark, sounds better than stupid, and you look over and there's your fellow man gathered in this large group of thousands, hundreds of thousands, all standing there. You don't really have to say anything. Of course, you can say, are you people staying over there for the reason I suspect? Are you all together because you probably know something or you're interested in what I'm interested in? You don't even have to say it, but you can go ahead and say it. There's no way out. It's not stupidity again. There's no way out. It is the basis. It springs, as all does, from the primary world. You're back to the garden. You're back to the soil. There's just simply no doubt to the ordinary mind. If there's a multitude of people, the collective over there, again, I repeat, you can say, you can ask, do you people know anything? You can ask, but that's after the fact. A group of people is already magnetically drawing other people. That is, you assume. One more time, it's past, it's below, it's before, assume. But you just assume without asking. They know more than I do. Why else would they be together? Notwithstanding the fact that, if you've got one ignorant person, that is you, and you're as good as anybody else to start with. I think it has something to do, if I remember correctly, I believe it has something to do with mathematics, about multiplying stuff times zero, that kind of thing. But nobody seems to notice, wait a minute, I know as much as anyone, and I am ignorant. And then you look around, and there are 4 million people together, dressed up as some religion. And you, without even asking, although you can, but without even asking, you think, finally, safety of a shore somewhere. Because the unsaid part is, well, damn, they know something. What is 4 million times 0? And yet, that cannot be, right? Right? In other words, I and every other individual are ignorant. But wait a minute, there are 4 million of them together. And you don't have to ask. You don't have to say. You don't ask yourself, wait a minute. Just because there are 4 million of them together, what if all 4 million of them are still ignorant? You don't have to ask that. If you did, you'd think, God, I'm more ignorant than I thought. Why am I asking such a stupid question? You see? Nobody ever asked that. That did make sense, didn't it? Even by me mispronouncing ignorant. I hope nobody's thinking, what in the hell? Don't go look for a dictionary and say I was supposed to be more ignorant. But notice, nobody ever says that. Now that I've said it, an ordinary mind could hear it and go, hey, I like that. That's a better shot. That's an even cheaper shot than I ever took at religion or any institution. But you don't even think about it. Think about that. How come you never thought about it? How come nobody ever thought about it? But wait a minute. If I don't know anything, and I can tell, I at least know this much, I have average insight. I am as insightful, I'm as intelligent, not educated necessarily, but I'm as intelligent as anybody, the average person. And when it gets down to the question, when it gets down to where is it that I age? What is the meaning of life? Why am I here? I do not know. I at least know that much, that I do not know. All right, now I'm being attracted to this great number of people. It's normally a religion. Millions of people. If I know as much as anybody, if I'm sure of that much, and I know I don't know anything, what in the hell makes me think that 4 million times 0 is anything other than 0? Why do I think just because we got 4 million people just as big a dumbass as I am about this matter, why just because they're all together, standing inside out of the rain in a nice building, but still it's the collection of people. Just because they're all together, why? What is it that makes me assume that they know more? Now, that's one question. I'll represent you the better question. How come nobody ever thinks about that? Well, I'll tell you why. Well, you know why, don't you? Well, there are at least 2 obvious whys. One is to give everybody a bad case of the blues. And suddenly you'd have all the phone lines tapped because everybody had to call their mama. The other one is, if they did think about it, what good would it do you if you're ordinary? Just give you an extreme cortical, what do you call it? A headache. Yeah, it's probably a headache, an extreme headache, because you can't do anything with it. Religion, back to what I was saying, has used, and it's just humanity, it's not religion, but it's just that aspect of humanity all collected together, normally referred to as an institution, is used the idea of faith. Now, if we were taking some street-level view, some sociological view of life and humanity and religion, you could say, well, boy, that was a pretty slick cover-up. Because, in other words, they're saying that they do not know, if the question is, what's the meaning of life? Let's just stick with that one as the basic one. And you go to religion. First-class religion. Oh, millions of people, and you ask the head religious guy, I don't know the meaning of life. And as I said, they're already playing this game because you're already attracted. They're not just playing it, you're playing along, that you're attracted that is every possibility that they know the answer, or they know more than I do, notwithstanding the fact that 4 million times 0 is, and you say, I don't know the meaning of life. And the head man or somebody says, I know you do, son. I've been searching everywhere. I knew you guys were here, and I went across the world. I went in opposite directions. I tried to get away, but I've driven myself crazy. I've taken drugs. I've done it. I know, son. I know. I did it myself. I have got to know. I'm past the point. I don't care where I get the information. I'll come back. This was my father's religion. I don't mind being back here. Yes, when I was in college, I became an atheist, but, hell, for a while I liked rugby, so. And for a while I was buying every Genesis album that came out. I mean, there's no accounting, at that age. And so I don't mind. I'm not too proud. I'm back here now, and I'll accept the answer from whencever it cometh. And the head guy goes, I know. And so you say, so what is it? And he says, we don't know. They might not be that crude, especially to somebody that had listened to all those years of Genesis albums. And the man could snap, so the priest would perhaps be a more subtle. But the fact is, he's going to have to admit we don't really know, but a quick follow-up, he'll say something like, but of course, man's not supposed to know. Then you might go, it's known as a double take. I'm not an actor, but goes, what? We're not supposed to know. Well, how do you guys make a living? How does the church keep going? What do you have to offer? He said, now we're getting somewhere, my boy. It's a matter of faith. One more time, I'm assuming that you people, even in TV land, have not been at the ass box. You've had enough time to get heavily into fermented beverages or drugs, and so that you can keep the hostility out there. It's not an attack on religion, and realize, as crude and as meaningless as that is to a revolutionist, it's probably the best shot in town. You understand? That, in other words, you can say from one view, if you could do it with no hostility, you could say, wait a minute, faith, what you're calling faith, is nothing but an admission that you don't know either. I mean, you got 4 million people behind you and you're all dressed up and you got a fancy building, but you don't know more than I do, and you're saying, yes, we don't know, but we have faith. And then you could say, that's cheap. I should have known that. Or you could have said, well, I already thought that. Tut, tut. That's the best shot in town for ordinary people. How else do you explain the fact that something that doesn't exist, an admission of ignorance, has survived as long as you've got a history of man? How do you explain that? Now, looking away from religion, if you forget about you people watching on television, watching this kind of stuff, and me saying that what I've been calling the revolution, in a sense, is so vague, it is so futuristic at any given time, it is so far removed from that which is sane and necessary, that it's almost impossible for an ordinary person to get any kind of grasp of it. Not that they should, and they can think it's insane, and they're correct. But for those people that keep thinking, well, I got some interest in this, or it keeps intriguing me in some way, but I still can't quite put my hand on it. Instead of thinking about just being me staying here, making hand gestures, and us taping it, and lectures and books or whatever that you thought the revolution of this kind of stuff has always been, rather than that, now can we get down to basics? Would you care to turn your attention to a more interesting area? What can you do in your own head if you're trying to have thoughts? If you are the bus and your one desire in life is to go somewhere, to go where no bus has gone before. And the people in the city, remember, told the little bus, hey, perforce. If no one's ever gone there, it has no name. And perforce, if it has no name, you can't go there. And the bus went, Jesus Christ, give me a ticket out of town. Get off my platform. Or, whatever kind of cheap colloquial phrase buses might have, I don't know. What would you do inside of your own brain? And you've been through this. I'll assume that all of you have been through some form of drugs at some time. You've been high one time, or even alcohol is a cheap version for those of you that are old enough to miss the great sexual drug revolution. You have tried to have thoughts, or you thought you did. You had too much coffee. You drove 2 nights in a row, stayed up. And you were on the verge of believing that you're almost having some kind of cosmic, mystical, unusual, out-of-town experience. I'll assume that all of you, just judging from the age of everyone and kind of people that might listen to this even for a few minutes, that you in some way, just small-time drugs, pot, until you got if you smoked enough that you got in the habit, but just something weak, like the first time or two. It's like a feeling that, my mind, which is why in the 60s, that is 1960s, not for you people that are 3,000 years old. The phrase about my mind, I'm expanding my consciousness through drugs. Because you get to the place your mind does begin to go off, parts of the brain, connections, I should say rather than actual unused parts, but connections are made, they're not only made, and you feel as though, wait a minute, I am about to have a goddamn brain-splitting experience. I'm about to think the unthinkable. I'm about to get some kind of radical insight into life. And as always, which is, I hate to tell you, especially people that waste a whole lot of money on good pot. Well, in a sense, you got more for your money than religious people. But it's the same thing as religion. You keep going, and you're always just this close. But you're never quite there. You never quite get to that destination that has no name. And you think, well, next time. This stuff was good, but next time I'm going to get some of that real imported stuff instead of that stuff they're growing up in Tennessee. I'm going to go back to that guy that had some of that good stuff from Panama. But it's always a feeling, and it does feel like you're getting further and further away from your home bus terminal, that I'm about to get out of town. And you never quite get there. The reason I brought this up, don't forget your place, is rather than laugh or think there was something amiss about religion being on the basis of faith. Which the unsaid part is, yes, we don't know any more than you do, but we have faith, and we encourage you to. That'll be $10, please, or whatever. And from one view, you can go, this is insane. What do they mean, faith? They can call it faith. They can write up on the wall and put them kind of, get a fancy sign painter and gold leaf, but faith. No, they're saying is they don't know. Hey, don't attack them. Attack your own bookie, your own junkie. Attack your own brain. If you don't know what it is, and you go, I'm close, call it faith. Give it up, bunkie. Rather than feeling like, well, religion and these other idiots have been misleading me. No one, may I repeat, no one in the world, in the sane world, is forced to dance. They're not going to mislead me. I'm not going to fall for faith. If you can't think it, you got no name for it. You don't know what the destination is. And you can say, yes, but at least I'm not religious. Yes, but you're faithful. How so? You're as stupid as you were to start with, and you won't admit it. Well, wait a minute. That's not the same thing as faith. I rest my case.